Hello, I'm Yakko Warner. And all joking aside, reboots are symptomatic of a fundamental lack of originality in Hollywood.
I didn't grow up with the Animaniacs. Hell, I'm not even sure it was ever on TV in the UK. At least, not on Freeview when I was a kid. Pinky and the Brain strangely did air on Kicks as its own thing, which I'd watch religiously. But in this review, I'll be exclusively discussing my thoughts on the Warner sibling segments of Animaniacs, as somebody who wasn't a fan of the original, and talking about what a new fan like myself can get out of the show. As for Pinky and the Brain, I'll be talking about it in its own video. With that out of the way, let's begin. The basic plot of the show is that there are these three anthropomorphic animals, who are maniacs. They're called the Warner siblings, cartoon characters that were locked away in the Warner Brothers water tower for being mischievous beings of destruction. I mean, it's less of a prison and more of a home in which they can escape from at any given moment, but I digress. In the reboot, the very meta reason for their coming back is because they're sellouts and got new contracts with Hulu for a reboot. A really funny explanation which I definitely got a kick out of. A typical episode will involve these siblings simply going around annoying the shit out of everyone they come across. Yeah, they're assholes, but at least they're assholes to people who deserve it. Sometimes.
Hey! Oh, that's it!
I honestly love these characters a lot. They're extremely fun and definitely stand out from one another. Yakko is the big brother and a total happy-go-lucky goofball. Wakko is the sweet, food-obsessed, and blissfully ignorant middle sibling, while Dot, despite being the little sister, is by far the most intelligent of the three, and most level-headed among them. She's one of those characters who think they're cute but is actually a total nightmare. She's great.
22 years later and I'm still a knockout.
Both the reboot and the original show are heavily reliant on pop culture references. This means that a lot of the humour comes from mocking contemporary politics and media, but in a very meta and self-aware sort of way. For the most part, I think the show truly does a great job of feeling relevant to the modern age, while not having it be too ultra-specific to the modern age that it's going to become completely irrelevant as time goes on. Unfortunately, this does still mean that a few aspects of the show will feel dated in a couple of years. I mean, this show started production in 2018, and some of the jokes have already aged poorly.
At least we think there's still a President Trump. You see, the writers are writing this in 2018.
There was this one episode where the whole premise revolved around manspreading, which nobody really talks about anymore except maybe BuzzFeed, and I couldn't help but cringe a little. With that being said, the episode still has some really solid jokes. It exaggerates manspreading in a way that mocks people who get offended by it, so entertainingly that even if you aren't familiar with manspreading as a concept, you'll still find enjoyment in the episode. You don't have to get every reference to laugh at Animaniacs, although it certainly helps. I've heard people online say that the show is too political, unlike the old show, which is absolute bullshit. All it takes is a quick Google search to find that Animaniacs has always had political satire. With that being said, it gives me immeasurable pleasure to find out that Doug Walker found the reboot to be too left-leaning. Also, that Tucker Carlson parody is hilarious. Sue me.
Like violence in children's television?
Yes, how do you feel about it?
Great! How do you feel about it?
People were worried that this show might be too politically correct and afraid of being edgy, but it turns out that quite the opposite is true. In fact, this show mocks political correctness as soon as the intro, although not in a mean-spirited way that leaves a bad taste in your mouth. It's edgy as hell. Mentioning hell? Sure. Dick jokes? No problem. It's just as much for adults as it is for kids. If anything, a lot of this stuff is going to go over kids' heads. Wait, he didn't pour any milk. Hello? So, another criticism about the show I hear thrown about a lot is that the show looks lazy and ugly. I've even heard people compare it to Johnny Test, which is a bit of a stretch. While it does look flat, saying that the animation is lazy is simply untrue. The biggest difference between the two shows in terms of animation, and why some people may think the old show looks so much more lively, is mainly due to the fact that the new show doesn't shade the characters. This makes the show look a whole lot flatter, while the line art itself, in fact, really isn't much better or worse than the old show. Not to mention, it's lost a bit of stylistic flair and the animation is a bit tamer and less exaggerated. However, it's still extremely fluid, expressive, and detailed. The character designs are distinctive and creative, and the backgrounds are very pleasing to the eye. And if we're on a topic of what this show does right with the animation, I obviously need to praise the hell out of the anime segment in Bun Control. This episode was a thinly veiled, rather bizarre affair that aimed to comment on gun control with the basic message of the episode being America's obsession with buns is unhealthy and dangerous. It's not my favourite episode and is somewhat reductive on both sides of the argument, although it's a lot better than OKKO's episode on gun control. During the episode, the Animaniacs have finally had enough of buns, and have an epic anime style showdown with the bun salesman. It was animated by Studio Yotta, but it's so good that a lot of people are under the impression it was animated by Trigger or another anime studio native to Japan. I am a big fan of anime parodies that are executed in a way that actually respects the medium, as it's much more entertaining and fun to watch than a mocking parody that deprecates it. These character designs are so on point. Massive props to Wakko's design, which they just nailed. This show's animation is far from lazy. That's all for this one. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, don't forget to like it, subscribe if you want more content from me in the future, and I'll see you next time.
Good night, everybody.